And hello, Ferguson. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks, Cindy. I'm using my new Macintosh, and I've got another Macintosh next to me, and I've got an external camera attached to my shirt, because you've got to keep up with all the technology. And the fans come on the computer, but the camera that flickers a bit on Blab today, but it didn't a few days ago, the sound is great, so it's right next to my throat, which is very important, so I'm using it for the sound, and I'm using the inbuilt HD camera for vision. Now, this is very, very related to venues. You've sent me links to, and I've read them, to lots of comments by some of my favourite speakers, such as Graham Codrington and David Heiner. Mm-hmm. And they are very, very often booked as speakers at all sorts of venues. And they know what can go wrong, basically. And it does. Yes. And it's like, if as a speaker, when I was in Iran with Graham Codrington 5 years ago, the man up in the control box, he said, the screen is dim, which it was very dim. Mm-hmm. And the man said, no, you can't make it brighter. You can't make it, or whatever the Iranian accent is, I can't remember. Graham went and reset all their stuff so we had a bright screen. Because we had an audience of 800 and the screen was very dull. Now, if you've got someone like Graham with you, you're lucky, because he's good at that stuff. If you don't have, and you're doing a presentation, and suddenly something doesn't work. I did a presentation for 50 lawyers in Savile Row, which is a quite posh venue, and the sandwiches were from Harrods, okay? And you can hear the background noise of my window repairmen. Ignore that. Okay, so there I was, working hard to do a presentation, and suddenly they said, oh, we've only got HDMI input into our screen. What? Oh, it's a lovely new screen, but it's only HDMI. But what about VGA? No, we haven't got that. You haven't got VGA input from my laptop. I'm going to do a PowerPoint. No, we haven't. Okay, what have you got then? Well, we've got some PC laptops. Now, luckily, what I'd done is stick my entire PowerPoint as a web presentation onto a flash drive. So I was able to use one of their laptops and their remote control to run my presentation. Mm-hmm. But that was scary to me, because the venue didn't tell me that there was only HDMI input to the big screen, which is a beautiful big screen, but it didn't have VGA input. And so what venues need to know is things like that, like what sound have they got, what visuals have they got, where the lavatories are, when the food is going to come. You need a lot of detail about a venue, and the venues don't tell you. They really don't.
And I think when people book them, they don't actually take a lot of that into consideration either, because they kind of think 15 minutes to get from the venue room to the toilets and back again is enough. But what they don't actually then calculate is how many people are going to be diving into those toilets at that 15 minutes.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, I have to tell you, the Excel Centre, okay, yeah. I've been to the Excel Centre for various things for Tony Robbins, Chris Howard, and various other people. Okay. Tony Robbins has, let's say, when he's there, he has 5,000 or 6,000 people. Okay. There are 4 lavatories.
Right, yes.
So he does a half-hour break. And for the ladies, they queue up like you would not believe. So what they tend to do, the ladies, and I don't blame them, they come into the gym.
Well, you have to, because if you've only got half an hour and you've waited 15 minutes just to get there, and you still want to have a quick drink or a quick chat on the telephone. Yeah. And yes.
So you can't have a coffee, you can't have a sandwich, you can't have anything. And you know you're going to be stuck in there for the next 4 hours, and you've just had an orange juice 20 minutes ago, and you need to empty your boxes, basically.
Absolutely. So
liquid or solid.
So that means as our speakers,
and so
you're going to be affected by people coming in to the auditorium afterwards.
Yeah. And one of my favorite speakers is Peter Thompson, and he's a good friend of mine. And I booked him to speak for the Professional Speaking Association a few years ago, twice actually. He's a lovely bloke. And the first thing he said in the morning when he arrived is, "Where's the toilets?" What? He said, "Where's the toilets and where's a quick route to them?" And I thought, whoa, he's so good. He's so trained in this stuff. And he was right. So what a venue needs to do is tell you where the toilets are, tell you where the fire escapes are, tell you if there's going to be a fire alarm routine, because I have that sometimes. Suddenly it goes, doo, 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 at midday on a Friday. And you go, oh my goodness, what's going wrong? No, it's routine. Well, you should have told me.
But that's the event organizer, because that's what they would say, is that's the event organizer's job to have told you. But the event organizer doesn't often think that it's something to pass on to you guys.
Yeah. You need to know where the tea stations are, the coffee stations are, the toilets are, the fire escapes are, the place for people who want to smoke a cigarette, where they can go out quite easily. And they need to know all of that stuff, actually. The speakers need to know that, and so does the audience. And one of the things that goes wrong in venues, they don't have a list of all the things that a speaker or presenter needs to know. They just don't have a list because they assume you'll know, but you won't. How would you? You've never been there before. I was speaking at my name, as you know, is Fergus McClelland. I was speaking at the McClelland Room, believe it or not, in Manchester University a few years ago with Penny Power and various other people, and I was the MC. And the sandwiches were suddenly there. Great when we arrived, fantastic sandwiches. We had a break 2 hours later. The sandwiches had all gone. And we said, where are the sandwiches? No, we have to throw them away. So you can have some more at 5 o'clock.
Oh, because of health and safety.
No, because there's a 2-hour limit for sandwiches to be out in the open. And you could see all the waiters and waitresses were stuffing themselves with the sandwiches from earlier on, which were very nice sandwiches. It was a charity gig. And the thing was that we didn't know. We weren't told when the sandwiches would be available or when they wouldn't be available. We didn't know. And so we were thrown into a state of chaos because the audience said, okay, I want a break. We gave them a break. Okay, we gave them a half break after 2.5 hours. We gave them a half-hour break. Take sandwiches, come back into the room, and you've got 30 minutes, and you have to be very strong with audiences because you have to drag them back into the room, as you know.
Some of them do.
And they went out to get their sandwiches, and there was nothing there.
Right.
Now, that's a venue problem.
Now, is it talking about with a venue problem, because as a speaker, you quite rightly just said about dragging the audience back. And I've known some speakers have had to do that and pick up and take over from the event organizer, because the event organizer thought it'd be the venue's job to kind of call the bell and let everybody else know that it's time to go back in. So at what point?
No, it's not fair.
At what point is it just through experience about the venue, or do we, as Mark has actually said, have we got to now start looking at this as a list of our requirements, or have a checklist of, and actually start doing what Charlene said, is speakers need to know what the planners are asking for? Yeah, the event planners have to ask the speakers what they want and then see what the venue can do to fit in with the speakers. Literally, what do the speakers want? Like I said, Peter Thompson wanted immediately to know where the toilets were. That's not funny, that's clever, that's right. And people need to know where there's a place to have their tea and coffee, sandwiches, lunch, whatever. And so the event planners need to speak to the venue. And I've done this. I've actually been an event planner for the Professional Speaking Association. And you have to be very strong with the venue and say, okay, where is this? Where is that? How can you do this? How can we do that? And then the timetable of our day is booked around what we know about the venue. And it has to be, if you like, a dialogue between the venue and the event booker. Right. And the event booker needs to know what the speakers want. So a smart speaker would be a person who would ask the planner, the booker, and if they can't answer the questions, then start worrying about the experience of the planner that's putting it all together. Yeah. And so I suppose if we do a short list for the speaker to ask the planner and the planner to ask the venue, how about that? Because it's actually a very short list, but it's very important, this list. So what computer to screen input output do I have? What AV do I have? Okay. Or what AV can you organize for me as a speaker? Now, I don't always use PowerPoint. Lots of times I don't use anything. I don't use sound or vision. I don't need to. But there are times when I really need to use both. I've got my own microphones. I can bring them along. I can plug them into the desk. But do they have a sound man on board at the venue? Now, I did a presentation which I was paid very well for a large company, which I loved. Okay.
So there were 220 people, the top salespeople from the entire world for this big company. And I saw the sound man beforehand. I made sure he mic'd me up and he ringed the mic out so it worked perfectly with the speakers. Okay, I was happy. And he said, okay, I'm off now. I'll see you later. Okay, right. Halfway through my 1 hour presentation, my microphone went dead. The battery was flat.
Yes.
Now, luckily, I can project a lot, so I could just fill the room. I couldn't go and, oh, excuse me, everybody, I just put another battery in the microphone. No, what happened was the man went home.
He went home.
So I need to know. Yeah, he did. He just went.
Not even just stayed in the venue.
At the desk. He just left.
Oh, crikey.
So, and this was for a very, very highly paid, not just for me, but the company I was doing the presentation for had paid a lot to this 5-star hotel, and I had lovely accommodation. But what they got wrong was not keeping the man there to do the AV.
Okay.
So one thing you need to know is the AV person has to be there well before your presentation.
So you can sound check.
And all the way through.
Okay.
Just in case something goes wrong. I mean, there's a mutual friend of ours, Kathy. Oops, I said Kathy. Yeah, it was Kathy. I was doing sound for a PSA event, and I couldn't find any sound from her microphone. I was doing all the sound. I panicked, and I turned it all up to maximum. I thought, okay, her battery's flat. And I waved to her for changing her battery, and she flicked the switch on the microphone because it was turned off. Can you imagine the people? Ooh, ah! Oh God! Pull the sound down. So that was a speaker problem, not an AV man problem. But the AV person's got to be very ready to run in with new batteries, to run in with a new microphone, to get the speakers. The expression is ringing out the room. When you set somebody up with a microphone, it's called ringing out the mic. It's a sort of term. So the person walks around wearing their microphone, talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1.
Absolutely.
And
That's
they
why
find
you do
where the feedback.
with it.
Yeah, and also what I found very often is that the AV person, and believe me, I've been it far more often than I'd like to admit, but I was paid for it, that once there's an audience in the room as well, the sound quality of the speaker changes, because all those bodies in the room, 500, 1,000, 200, 100, doesn't matter. The actual sound quality of the person speaking is changed by all those human bodies in the room because there's sound bouncing off the bodies. So then the AV person spends a while carefully adjusting the bass and treble of the speaker's voice to make it perfect for the audience. And it's a thing I did, a radio thing I did many years ago. I said, make love to the AV guy.
Yes.
Because that person can make you look good or destroy you.
Yeah.
They can make you far too bassy or far too high pitched. And so what they've got to do, you need to know, okay, so this is back to the venue.
Absolutely, back to the venue.
You need the venue to have a good AV person who speaks to each speaker. And obviously, the duty of the speaker is to be there at least half an hour before they speak, at least.
Yes.
And preferably during a lunch break or a morning break, they need to be there. One of the ones that went disastrously wrong for me, I set up my equipment during the coffee break. And then everybody else came on and somebody else used my computer for their presentation. And when I came on, my sound wasn't working from my computer. And it was too late. I didn't know. So I had no sound for my files, which needed sound. So I couldn't demonstrate sounds. I had to say, well, the sound here is, and it didn't go well.
Right. But then that's the danger of leaving your computer on the rostrum, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because everybody else then thinks it's the general one and not a specific one.
Yeah, and they thought it was my fault. It wasn't. It was the fault of the venue.
Because they didn't provide.
Which was a very posh venue, because their AV wasn't working properly.
No.
And sometimes you have to use the microphone at a rostrum, which I hate.
No.
Because that means you're stuck behind a lectern. Yeah. Hello, here I am. I'm going to do your presentation now. And you can't use the stage. You can't go into the audience. You can't share with them. So what you need to know is, what flexibility do we have as a speaker in that venue?
Okay.
So how much ground can we use? Do we have a floor space in front of us that we can use? And I wouldn't expect a speaker to actually visit a venue a day or two, a week, a month before the event. I've done that lots of times, but very often it's not possible.
Well, if it's a different country,
some of
you
the
can't.
Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah, exactly. If it's in a different country or a different county or a different end of the country, forget it. It'd be ridiculous to go there on a pre-visit just to check the room out. So what the venue people need to do is to have a very good plan, like you need pictures of the room and you need short films of the room being used by other people. That way you can know, okay, yeah, exactly, CJ. If you want to do powerful stuff, think of Michael McIntyre or any of the big stand-ups. I can't just stand and go like this behind a podium. Now, I did actually train someone to do that for the United Nations a few months ago, and he did it very well. But it was because he knew what he was doing, so I trained him how to be behind the lectern stroke platform. You know, I trained him to use his hands more because he couldn't walk around. And so he had to get more into his arms and hands, but he knew the venue. It's the United Nations. It's pretty good to know.
You have to.
The podium at the United Nations, it's pretty well known. But if you've got a stage or a platform, you need to know the size and shape of it, and the venue should say, our stage is, let's say, 12 feet by 6 feet, and it's 10 inches high. Well, good. You now know you can get a member of the audience to get up onto stage with you if you want. And you can walk off it if you know how big the space in front of it is to actually go out and join with the audience. As I told you before, and I've said this before, when I was in Iran, we all knew that there was a big space in front of the stage. The stage was really high, but there was a big space in front of the stage before the audience. So we all knew we'd just use that space. It's more intimate, but we knew the venue once we were there.
But the problem with the venue is that I've had it before where they say you're going to be using a certain room. You get there, they know you're coming a week, 2 weeks, 3 months in advance.
Yeah.
And they know the equipment in the room is broken. And you've stated you're having a training day, you're having a speaking day, yet the audio doesn't work or the music's being piped in from the reception, you can't switch the damn thing off. So they don't actually maintain their rooms or actually work out that if you're doing a training, you're going to be using a PowerPoint presentation, you need the video equipment, that they need to swap its stuff in. So how can we get over from that?
Okay, well, what I do as a speaker, but speaker bookers, agents should be doing this, but I do it as an individual speaker because I don't have an agent. I just do it all for myself. I phone them, the venue, I say, okay, tell me about the room, tell me about the AV. And they do. I said, now I want to speak to the AV man.
Ah, so that's a quick check way. And then that way you've got your then checklist. Do they, will they, are they?
Exactly. Do you have HDMI? Do you have VGA? Do you have wireless microphones? Do you have problems with feedback in the room? Can I be mic'd out or rung out, mic'd up and rung out at least half an hour before the event starts? Will the man be there all the way through? You're
using technical terms, and that's the other issue, is that whilst you sound very, very credible about that, how would I know what that would actually mean? And how can I sound credible to a guy if he's using all these technical terms?
Okay, so let's drop the technical terms. Okay, will I have a good microphone that works well for me?
Okay.
Will you make sure it makes me sound good?
You can actually ask them that question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because that's to do with treble and bass balancing.
Right.
And can I be mic'd up half an hour before my presentation to make sure it works perfectly on me?
Okay. Cool.
Are there feedback problems in parts of your room?
Oh, that's a good one. Now, because the event organisers wouldn't even ask for that, and they wouldn't even think of that when they're booking a venue. Because the one thing I've noticed with quite a few venues is when they've got the doors halfway through the auditorium and you can't kind of sneak out, you can't sneak in without the damn thing banging. So would an AV guy know that?
Good one. Actually, no, AV guy would not know about banging doors. He wouldn't be interested in banging doors. He'd be sitting there with his headphones on, reading a magazine probably and smoking a cigarette. No, he wouldn't know about that. But the actual people who own the venue should know that sort of thing. Yes, this door. And also, like I've set up sound for various places in London. One, I had to run the cables for the loudspeakers up and around door frames so it didn't go across the floor. But there are times when you have to go across the floor. Okay, do they have rubber kick strips for cables when people are coming in the door? Because if you've got a cable going across a doorway where the audience is coming in, they will fall over it. Believe me, at least one or two people will trip over the cable and pull it out of the desk. So you need to have those rubber kick strips.
But we shouldn't concern ourselves with that, should we, as a speaker?
No, not as a speaker, but the venue should know it. And
because
so
them tripping over, it would take the audience attention away from what you're talking about and looking at who's just tripped over.
And like, for example, I have a lot of volunteers come on stage with me. And I have to make sure the cables are well out of the way for somebody coming up on stage.
Of
Otherwise,
course.
believe me, they will fall over the cable. I don't know why, but they will.
And if they're getting up to do movement around the room exercises as well. So from that viewpoint, you've got to, again, know how the auditorium and how they do their AV.
I mean, I've got huge amounts of cables, XLR cables. I can run them around a room of about 150 foot and put my speakers up in corners. And there are times I've had to do it up and over doorways and all sorts of weird things just to make sure it worked properly. And the venue did nothing. It was like, it was all up to me, basically, and the organisation. That was a PSA. It was various events we've done. And you go in and the stage is in the wrong place. What? It should be 90 degrees over there. No, we thought we'd put it here.
So in other words,
we wanted it over there. No.
You've got to treat the venues as no more than just providing.
Even though you've gone and checked out the venue and you know it's a perfect room and you say, I want the stage there on that wall. Perfect. And they say, yes, sir, we'll do that. You turn up on the day and they put it the wrong side. Or you want the chairs in a horseshoe, they put them theatre style. You don't want theatre style, you want a horseshoe. No, they've just done what they wanted. At which point you have to be there 2 or 3 hours early. And I've done it for the Yes Group as well as the PSA. You have to go in there and you have to find someone at the venue and say, look, this is not the way we wanted it. Can you move this over here? Can you do the chairs like this? Oh, yes, we get somebody to do it. And you've got to be there 3 hours before as an event booker, which is I've done as well as a speaker, to make sure the venue gets it right, because for some reason they don't. Very often they're not telling their team what you've asked for. Right.
So that's a communication breakdown of the venue that can ultimately then harm you. Because the other thing I've noticed with venues is when you've got a dodgy room that has light coming in at a specific angle, when you're on stage, and
you can't be seen, and your PowerPoint can't be seen.
Yeah, and they know this, so I don't understand why some venues do actually think that extra minute, and they'll come in at lunchtime and they'll lower some shutters, knowing full well you're going to do a presentation afterwards. Whereas others, they have no sense of, no, we're not doing it, not doing anything. You've just hired the room, get on with it.
Yeah, and what you're saying, that just reminded me, heating of the room and cooling of the room and the noise of air conditioning. It goes wrong so often. And you get half the audience saying, excuse me, at the break, they say, excuse me, I'm really cold. And there's freezing air being pumped onto them. They're wrapping themselves in jumpers and coats. So what are they going to remember about that presentation day? I was cold, basically. That's all they remember. That's not good.
Yes. No, understand. So all these things actually do impact on what you're doing, especially with, as CJ was saying, that the speaker actually asked for 25 chairs and the venue left 40, which was too much furniture. Yeah.
And then you have to find someone to take the other chairs away. And you rush out to main reception and say, yeah, we can do it. They don't. I've had that so many times for the Yes Group as well. Let's say you're expecting 600 people and you get 400. And you say to them, can you please take the other 200 chairs away? Oh, yeah, we send somebody to do that now. And it doesn't happen until 10 minutes before the audience comes in. It's absolute panic and it's really hard work. I wanted 6 tables along that wall. You put 3. Why did you only put 3 tables? Oh, we thought you'd only need 3. No, I told you 6. Okay, we'll get someone to put them. And I want tablecloths on them, please. Oh, you want tablecloths? Yes, I don't want them without a tablecloth because it looks disgusting. Your trestle tables are really horrible. I want a proper table with a proper covering for all the people who are paying to sell their goods at the event to be able to put their stuff on nice cloths. Oh, yes, we've got them. Well, get them now. And so sometimes people say, Fergus, you look really stressed. No, I'm not. I'm alert.
But then that's the job of the event organizer. Yeah. And sometimes it's the job of the speaker to actually help the event organizer by sometimes just thinking a little bit ahead. But then it comes back down to actually understanding whereabouts and how experienced they are, I guess. Yeah,
and there are various things that can go wrong, and if they can, they will. There was a presentation I was doing at Imperial College London, and all the PowerPoints were on my MacBook Pro, okay? This is years ago, my early MacBook Pro. And I'd forgotten to take the adapter for VGA from a Macintosh. Actually, it was a PowerBook G4, actually. Right, it's about 11 years ago, 10 years ago. And this is Imperial College London, right, which is huge and has a massive IT department. And I said, excuse me, can you provide me with a plug to go from a Mac to a VGA? Oh, well, we could, but the IT department is closed. It closed at 5 o'clock. That was it. Nothing.
Right. But then that's also coming back down to also doing a little bit of checking out the venue, because I know one speaker was saying that having just 2 power points in the room, when there's so many people that are now coming with their computers, with their mobile devices, their iPads, and you can't charge them up, or you can't just get anything sort of like just to quickly run something. So even if you do have a bad iPad and you need to plug in something else, you can't.
No, you just can't. Sorry, I had to change the room because my power supply is here. Right.
Exactly.
Never mind, you can see my books. You can see some of my books. That's a much better than a green screen, isn't it? It's real books. Lots of classics. Anyway, it's not really a duty of the speaker. Well, in my case, when I did that, I was, if you like, the event manager, the event booker, and I made the mistake of leaving out the adapter. That's my fault, totally. But there was another problem at the same venue. The control room was up at the back, and the man controlling everything was in the control room, and he couldn't hear anything from the stage. He said, no, it's all right, I'll pop out the door and I'll hear. He didn't. So when the man on stage, Frank Finesse, a friend of ours, wanted his film run, I had to go running up the steps, and the man came out, what? Can you run the film, please? Oh, okay. He then went back in and ran the film. So we had a glitch. We had a 5-minute glitch, which is not professional, really. And what I thought then, that was when I realized it was at that event when I forgot the adapter anyway, and the control room man, AV man, made his mistake of going into the control room. That was when I realized the old expression, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, basically. Their room with all the adapters was locked. Their control room man couldn't hear what was happening on the stage, even though he said he could. And he said, oh, I'll see hand signals. No, he didn't see anything. He couldn't run anything because we're talking Imperial College London. I'm quite happy to say it. It was about 10 years ago. Hopefully, they've fixed it since then. Luckily, when Frank came on stage, he had his own adapter for his own laptop, so his PowerPoint was able to play. But the earlier speaker couldn't play their PowerPoint because they didn't have a Mac adapter.
Right.
And so it's not a job for a speaker to have to arrange for lots and lots of adapters for themselves, especially some of the posh speakers we knew. They wouldn't dream of taking a range of adapters and microphones with them. I do.
Yeah. No, there are quite a few speakers that, was it about 10 years ago? It was when the USB things were just coming in, and that was sort of like the real posh way. But up until that point, you took your laptop and you expected the venue to have the link cable between your laptop and the projector.
Yeah, lovely. Dream on. But the other thing, okay, I've got a very, very good headset mic. You know, one of those little wrap around your face ones, right?
Yeah.
About £400. And I've recommended it to lots of other speakers. I had 2 or 3 before that, but I love the one I've got. This Audio Technica is brilliant. Okay. So I recommended it to Roger Harrop, who's a very well-known speaker, who speaks all over the world. Okay, and has been on the board of the PSA and so on. So he bought the same microphone, and he loved it in England. Then he went to America, and it was only 240 volt. It wouldn't accept a 110 volt, and he didn't know. So he couldn't use it.
Yeah, different power.
And when he came back, he was fuming. And I said, well, it's nothing to do with me or the supplier of the mic. It's to do with getting the right adapter for the country you're working in. And so you've got to have a range of adapters just in case, whether it's voltage transformers or plugs and sockets. You've got to make sure you've got everything you need just in case.
Yes, but then that's the speaker, but that's not the venue problem though, is it?
That's for the speaker. No, it's not for the event organizer. It's not for the venue. However, what the venue does have the duty to say to the speaker booker, between them actually, is what facilities they've got and what facilities the speaker will need to bring, or what facilities the speaker booker will need to organize. And that's for the venue. They need to have a list of what's available and what isn't, basically. Like there's a venue I'll be speaking at again next week. And they used to have this beautiful, huge screen I could just plug my laptop into. Great. It's broken. Okay. So if I want to use a screen and have a pull-down screen, I've got to take my own projector to use it because their beautiful TV screen is broken and they haven't replaced it. So I know that, and it's a venue I've used about 65 times in the last 3 years, so I love the venue to bits.
But they know you're coming in.
They can. Oh. Sorry?
I said if they know you're coming in, and this is what I don't understand, because if you can't use the tech, the event organizer will get upset, especially when they find out that this has been broken for a while. So
yes, it has been for a long while.
The event organizer will not book there again if it then impacts on the audience.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's actually the same venue, which I love. It's a great venue, and I'm still using it. They've got a room that takes 100 people, and it's got a ceiling-mounted projector for the screen, which is fabulous. So 100 of us turned up one day, me as the MC, and I brought a projector of my own along just in case. Their ceiling-mounted projector had broken. They didn't actually tell me. Oops. We had 100 professional speakers, including Roy Shepherd, who's a big radio presenter, Roger Harrop, lots of people from the PSA. It was a big event. Okay, it was done for Paul Cook. And they didn't actually tell us beforehand. Lovely venue, but they didn't tell us the projector in the ceiling wasn't working. So we had 100 people in a room, and luckily we had a table that we stuck up with my projector because I took along with me just in case that we were able to use.
Right.
Otherwise, we had 6 speakers that day, and me as MC, and there'd been nothing on screen, nothing at all, because they didn't have a projector free, and the one in the ceiling had broken. So yeah, the venue should always make sure their facilities that they list actually work.
Absolutely. But then I think Russell Pearson has made a very good comment on the side that good speakers should be able to pull their presentation off without any tech if necessary. Yeah. And I think that really then depends on making sure that, okay, you've got this is if everything's working presentation, but know your presentation well enough how you can represent your presentation at the drop of a hat should you get there. Yeah. And let's say there's a power cut. And you can then still carry on and entertain. Yes,
Cindy.
Been there, done that.
Cindy.
Got
Okay.
That one.
Okay, you got me. I've done that one. I was doing a speech in Liverpool, just around the corner from the Anfield Road. I was going along there. I've been staying in the Epstein house, and I didn't realise. It was Brian Epstein's granddad's house actually, which is now B&B. And I'm driving along the road called Anfield Road. It meant nothing to me, and I suddenly saw "We'll Never Walk Alone," Anfield Stadium. I thought, "Ooh, I'm really in a history place." I drove past Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields, right? And I went to this presentation place in a back street, goodness knows where. And it was for a big college team, right? So I started my presentation, and the PowerPoint was working, and my projector was working. And I said, okay, I want to talk to you about the things that work in a human voice and things that don't work in a human voice. Are you interested? Yes, they were, a bit, not very, but there's about 40 of them. Okay, so their team leader had done all his stuff for them and got them all jazzed up for me. And so I started to talk about that power cut, complete darkness. Well, there's no PowerPoint, there's no lights, nothing. So I said, okay, everybody, can you shout out your opinions of what works for you in a voice and what doesn't work for you? And I did my presentation like that for about 20 minutes. The power came back on and it worked because and Rod Sloan, a friend of both of us, did a speech for GKIC about 2-3 months ago. And he said, I'm not using a PowerPoint. If you can't speak without a PowerPoint, you're not a speaker. I love to use PowerPoint and I use it for various animated stuff, right? That's all. I don't use it as a crutch. I use it to give stuff to people with videos and audios and things like that, which help them to understand what I'm saying. And I also get them to use a microphone and they see the waveform of their voice on the screen, which really works for people. They can see the volume, they can see the frequency and so on.
It's interactive tech, not being talked at.
Yeah, it's totally interactive. It's not pumping stuff into people with 100 words on a page, please, no, please not. But at the same time, I can do it without. Rod can do it without. It's nicer if you've got it. And a speaker, the job of a speaker, if you're a professional speaker and you're being paid a nice amount of money, or even if you're doing it free anyway, pro bonos, showcases as Nigel Risner calls them, you need to be good enough at your job to be able to handle not having a screen, not having lights on in the room. You know, think about blackout. Okay, it's a blackout. Can you do your speech in complete darkness?
So in other words, it's back to if the venue absolutely 100% fails you, then how can you make sure your presentation actually work?
Yeah. And because if you've got it's not bare bones, but if you've got the skeleton of your presentation, then you can get round anything. Not get away with anything, but you can get round anything.
It's getting around
at the same time, it's your duty as a speaker to be prepared for any eventuality. And it's what I said earlier about the chain with the broken link, the weak link. You've got to think, okay, what can go wrong? And write yourself a list of the things that can go wrong, basically.
Okay. Well,
and then cover all of those.
No.
And actually, the venue needs to do that. What can go wrong for our client? And the agent needs to do what can go wrong for my client.
Well, one of the biggest things that I have found speakers, especially those that are always recalled back by event organisers, are those that are able to do that horrid after lunch slot.
I love that.
Because
I love that one.
They blame it that, okay, everyone's falling to sleep after the food.
Yeah.
But usually the food is so traumatic to get because you have to queue up, wait for ages. It hasn't been properly kind of organised and managed. So you're actually taking spending so much energy just to get some food that by the time you're getting it, you're actually, now I'm relaxing. As well as having the food.
Oh, they do.
So
yeah, I've had that. And I've had even those clients I had in Greenwich in my house. I live in a different house in Greenwich, and it was a husband and wife. And I took them out at lunchtime for a meal. And they both had a glass of red wine with their meal. It's a very nice meal.
So again, that's back down to the venue.
Yeah. My venue was lovely. My lovely 25-foot room with back projection, which I used to have. And after lunch, I said, right, let's start again. And I watched their eyelids. Both of them.
Okay, so you didn't plan that pretty well then.
No, I didn't. They'd had roast beef lunches.
Heavy.
And 2 glasses of red wine each.
Right.
And I had to really work hard to get them up and walking around. It's called the graveyard slot.
It is.
After lunch.
And I will say the venue doesn't always help and the food doesn't always help, because the one thing I noticed with some event organisers is they get the cost of the venue down on the promise that the audience will pay and buy alcohol at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Or an evening slot. And then when they couple that with either light buffet food, then you're in for trouble.
Yeah, I agree. And also the food actually should be light. If you think about it, the venue, they can, I mean, I don't like chicken. I love beef. But at lunchtime, they should do fish and chicken.
Light stuff.
Or pork. They shouldn't do beef and lamb. And they shouldn't do gravy and roast potatoes because it will knock them out. It really will.
No.
They can't help it.
So, brilliant.
Best tips for the graveyard slot.
Brilliant question from CJ about the best tips for the graveyard slot.
Okay. The first thing you do at the opening of graveyard slot is attack the audience in a nice way. Okay.
As in,
you've seen me do it, Cindy. Anyway, okay, so say, okay, everybody, you've had your lunch, you've had your wine. Okay, can you stand up, walk around a bit, shake yourself out, because otherwise you're going to fall asleep and you're going to miss the next hour. Do you want to miss the next hour of the presentation, or would you like to be very engaged and get something from the next hour? You don't have to. You can sit there and sleep. But if you sit there and sleep, you've got to think to yourself, why am I here today? Because I could be sleeping at home after a lunch, or I could go now and go home and sleep. So would you like to be involved in the next hour of interesting stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you? And then you give them some bullet points of the things that you're going to give them. I'm going to show you a way to engage much more powerfully in business, a way to increase your turnover, a way to get on better in your relationships, business and personal, a way to get more money into your company. If you're interested in those, would you like to work on that now? Because I will get you working on it if you're interested, or you can sleep.
Right. So basically what you've done is you've given them something to shock them back into the room, as it were, and then make them actively listen.
Yeah.
So is it our job, though, just to check out with the venue again what the menu would be, or what food is going to be served, and if there's going to be alcohol?
Yeah, I would say if it's a lunchtime thing, there really shouldn't be alcohol if you can avoid it. And as you know, I love alcohol, but not at lunchtime because I will fall asleep. Mind you, if it's a boring presentation, I'll fall asleep. Even if I hadn't had a drink for 5 days, I will fall asleep. So you want light drinks, fruit juices, tea, coffee, certainly plenty of coffee. Mm-hmm. The venue should give them lots of really good quality coffee because that gets people wired. That's what you want. And you want puddings with lots of sugar in them because that gets people wired.
Okay.
So that's horrible, but it will wire people up. It'll boost their pancreas and their liver and everything. And they'll be, ooh, I've had ice cream. And banoffee, I hate banoffee pie. I've never had one. I've seen it and I think it's disgusting. But it's things with sugar in them will actually, like banana split, brilliant, with sugar on top of the cream. Yep, that'll work.
Right.
So you want energy puddings. A venue needs to do energy puddings, apple pie with custard and cream and sugar on the apple pie. And there's lots of cherry pie, whatever. If it's a pie thing with fruit in it, which is very syrupy, and sugar on top, brilliant.
But again, that's coming back down to the venue. And
that's
at what point do we have to then phone? So when we're phoning the venue for the AV guy, we then just have to check with the planner and say, right, I've noticed some of the graveyard slot. What's the menu?
Yes, the lunchtime menu. We need to know the lunchtime menu.
Okay. So I would do that very sneakily by saying, am I invited to lunch?
Yeah. Oh, well, the great thing, also the thing is, as you said, you need to get people back in the room, which I think David Heiner said.
Yeah.
I can get an audience back in the room in 10 seconds, which is why they used me as the voice of God at the PSA, at the convention a few times, and even the spring conventions. If you do it in the right way with your voice, people will run back into the room, get into their seats, and they won't know why. But it is that corralling the people and getting them back into their seats. So let's say you announce a 1 hour lunch. Mm-hmm. Okay. Add another 15 minutes. So what you do, you announce a 45-minute lunch.
Okay.
And you tell the venue it's an hour, but you tell the audience it's 45 minutes. Because otherwise they won't get back in the room. They just won't. They won't come back in. You have to go and drag them into the room.
Okay.
And they're having a great time. They're having fun. They're all talking to each other, but they're not actually getting the stuff that the speakers want to give to them.
So as an event planner, I've then got to have basically 2 timetables, or virtually 3. Correct. The reality, what will happen, what I'd like to happen, and then one for the speakers.
Correct. So the speakers know, like, you've got to be back ready in 45 minutes.
Right.
And you tell the audience it's 45 minutes. And you tell the venue, realistically, it's an hour, but after 45 minutes, clear the food stuff,
everything.
Clear the plates, clear everything. Because then they've got to go back in the room because there's no food left. It's all gone. And you have jugs of water in the room, which is another thing for a venue. It's very important. If you've got a place for a table with jugs of water and lots of cups and glasses, do it. Because a lot of people want to drink water, especially if it's a one-day long event. People want to have a drink. Even for a half day, people want to have a drink of water. Water's brilliant. Room temperature water, not iced, okay? Because it'll make people cough, paralyze their throats.
Oh.
Yeah, do not, if you're speaking, Cindy, do not have iced water. Because what it does, it's like if you splash iced water on your face, it gets rid of wrinkles. Yeah, it does the same in your throat. It gets rid of the wrinkles in your throat. But the wrinkles in your throat are for speaking with. So if you have iced water, if I have iced water, I go, ah! You can't.
So again, the last thing you want is your audience to be coughing and your presenter to be coughing. Right.
Yeah, okay. So it's fine. Do not put ice in the water. Put lemon in the water, brilliant, yes. But have the water at room temperature.
Cool. Okay.
For the audience. Because then it's soothing. The lemon is soothing and a little bit of bite, which is lovely. And also it keeps the throat open. And yeah, it's a bit, like, I go to the cinema reasonably often, and sometimes I get a coughing fit. If I've got a cup of coffee or even a glass of water next to me, I don't cough because I just have a sip.
Right.
It's magic. Otherwise, I've got to go out to the cinema, miss half the film, and go and have a coughing fit. So just room temperature water or fruit juices. If the venue if it goes to that level, okay, have orange juice, lemon juice, squashes, things like that, ready for the audience to pour for themselves. The challenge as an event organizer is to make sure people aren't getting out of their seats all the way through the event and pouring themselves drinks. That is the problem.
Now quite a lot of venues, there's been some that I've been to that they appreciate that, trying to keep people in their seats, but what they tend to do is they come in mid-presentation and start trying to change the water and change the coffee cups and set stuff up.
Yeah. I'll just answer a couple of questions here, Cindy. CJ, lemon water is great for speakers, definitely. Orange juice, fresh orange, is very good for speakers. And Mentos, Russell, please don't. It will make you cough. After half an hour, you think, oh, it's cleaned my throat out. And then your throat goes really dry. It's like hacks and tunes. Do not have a coffee sweet for your throat, really not. Not if you're speaking. What you want is something sugary and syrupy, right? Something wet. No, I don't care about Mentos, Russell. No, don't. No, I don't care what they do. They will make you cough. Cucumber, gorgeous. I love cucumber. I haven't actually had cucumber water, but it does sound fun.
I'm going to try that one.
Yeah, it sounds safe, and I utterly adore cucumber. Like melon is brilliant. And when I was in Rome a few days ago, for breakfast I was having coconut and grapefruit juice.
Okay.
Oh my God, I could drink that all the time. Coconut and grapefruit. It worked. It worked very well. It was very nice at breakfast time, and I didn't cough. So yeah, talking about on the table with the audience. What do you mean, Russell?
Then what do you put on the table with the audience? Because you go to venues and quite often they have like either little mints, imperial mints.
Oh yeah.
The Fox's Glacier kind of mints and the fruit mints. Sorry, the fruit mints.
Oh, Glacier mints are fine. Glacier mints are fine because they're gentle and they're slow. And after 8 mints are brilliant. That's fine because again it's mint and mint is okay.
What about
that's okay.
wrappers on
not Mentos? No, well, yeah. The trouble is, if they've got wrappers on them, there's a noise of you unwrapping them. Boiled sweets, a lot of venues actually have boiled sweets, cherry flavour, orange flavour, lemon flavour, in little wrappers. They're fine. They won't upset you at all, and they're soothing to suck on those and let the juice go down your throat. They're fine. As boiled sweets, yeah. So if you've got cocktail style, you put a bowl of those on each table, and you also have orange squash and lemon squash on the table. That's what a venue should do, so that the people come in and sit around the table and lots of glasses, even some spare glasses, because it's all very well putting one glass for each chair. Have 2 or 3 spare ones as well on the table, and nice big jugs of water if they're mixing their own squashes. Yeah, that would be the way, actually, I would say. So they've got the thing of squash. And also, what I got wrong once at a venue, I thought, oh, this is orange juice. So I filled a glass with it. No, it was orange squash.
I've seen that done quite a few times.
Yeah, I've done it. So they need to make it clear, squash, add water, or something like that, written on the thing. Add water to this.
They don't.
Otherwise it'd be a disaster.
They actually don't. So,
no,
okay, as a speaker, would we quickly check that out? And if we were actually running like a training session the whole day, so let's say, and by the way, this is actually add water, and do make yourself, you make use of the water and the confectionery on the desk, that type of thing.
Yeah, and also, well, yeah, it's sort of a duty of the speaker to do that, but it's also a duty of the venue to tell the event planner what they're planning to put on the tables. And then the event planner can tell the speaker, on the table will be orange squash and lemon squash or cherry squash. And so therefore, the speaker needs to know at the beginning, the MC actually is the person who needs to know that.
Now, I've seen speakers that have actually sort of like give the room permission to actually use those stuff. And I've seen that when they've done that, the audience seems to be a bit more relaxed when they are reaching for the bottle, because up until that point, it's sort of like I'm interfering, I might be upsetting the presentation. And of course, all eyes go onto that person when they do it. It's like, how dare you rustle? So I guess as a speaker, by giving the room permission to use these things, it just relaxes everybody quicker.
Yeah, well, actually, we're talking about speaker, but there's the other person, which I've done lots of times, as you know. The person whose duty it is to do these setups is the MC for the event, right at the beginning. The Master of Ceremonies needs to help the audience to understand all of the stuff we've been discussing to do with the venue and to do with the timetable and to do with the fire escapes and to do with the coffee and tea and the times of the breaks. And all of that needs to be announced right at the beginning. And the MC needs to say to people, right, at 11 o'clock, we'll be having a 15-minute break. And I do mean 15 minutes. So time it as 10 minutes in your head, because if you're not back in 15 minutes, you will miss things.
Right.
And we'll have a comfort break at 12:15. And then at 1:30, we'll be breaking for a fantastic lunch. But we've got to be back here by 2:15. It's only a 45-minute lunch. Don't think you can disappear. Otherwise, you'll miss stuff, because we've got to stay to our timetable. We've got to keep to time, because here's the reason why, which is the MC's going to say.
But then that's the difference between a good MC and a professional MC, or the event planner trying to do it themselves.
Yeah, and at the end, you say, because I know that some of you need to leave on time, and it's in your timetable to leave at 4:30 or 5, right? If we overextend and we end up going to 5:30, it's not fair to you, because you will miss part of the presentation. And that's why I ask you, please all be back.
Giving them the reason.
2:15. Otherwise, it's not fair to the people who've got to leave early.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's a good tip.
So I'm, as you know, I'm a total fanatic about timetables. I mean, I'm seriously fanatical about timetables for events, because I've done speeches when somebody's overspoken by 20 minutes, and my 1 hour speech is suddenly 40 minutes. That's not fair to me or the audience.
But then it goes back down to, again, with the venue, because I know the venue can eat the time, which then pushes on. Some speakers are able to shorten theirs. Others just don't have that professionalism. So I guess it's coming back down to being aware of how your presentation is put together, so that you can actually squidge it down if you need to, but not lose too much value for the audience.
Well, yeah, I actually took a 1 hour presentation to 10 minutes once.
1 hour to 10 minutes.
Because somebody said to me, I had this huge PowerPoint and everything, and it was to a sales team, a big sales team. And someone came up to me and said, Fergus, can you shorten your presentation tonight? I said, yeah, okay. How long? Well, we've got to be out of here in 10 minutes. What? I haven't even started. Yeah, I know, but 2 or 3 directors did speeches and we're running late. So can you cut it down, please? Okay, how long have I got? Well, 10 minutes. And so I zipped through my files and said, okay, you'll see that next month. You'll see that next month. You'll see that next month. And I did blah, blah, blah. They gave me an hour the next month, a nice hour, because I just played with the audience and I did exactly 10 minutes. I'm fanatical about that. Every speaker, it's one of my, this is not a venue thing. Every speaker should be able to speak to time. I'm really fanatical about that.
Yeah, but then having said that, when the event planner books the room, isn't it vital that they find out if there's somebody going to be on after them, just in case?
Yes. Yeah.
So they shouldn't have really put you into that position, apart from, look, we've all got to go, or there's something else going on, or whatever. But
no, but at the same time, the event planner should know the exact timing and look upon it as brick walls. Mm-hmm. Never mind if somebody's coming later. If your event finishes at 5, I don't care if somebody else's starts at 5:30. You've got to finish at 5 and get people out of the room by 5:30. And that's the event planner needs to speak to the venue and say, what is our margin after we finish before we have to be out of the room?
Right.
Is it a 30-minute margin, a 15-minute margin? Mm-hmm. And then you stick by it. So that, again, that's a discussion between the event planner and the venue to make sure everything is compartmentalized, really.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for our chat today. It's been absolutely brilliant and lots of information. Thank you so much.
It's lots of scars, put it that way. I've got lots of event scars that tell me how to do it. And God, all these people keep trying to phone me.
Well,
that's all right. I'll call them now. I've only had